Hello, this is Class 4, Lesson 1, Part 2 of the Clinical Operations Management Program. I'm Daniel Hermann O'Moran. Class 4 deals with all things on the study level, and Lesson 1 is dealing with how to learn a protocol, how I learn a protocol. I've been doing this about 20 years, and I have learned how to learn a protocol, the whole protocol, in a thorough and an efficient way. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. So this is the syllabus of the Clinical Operations Management Program. Class 1 is done, for now anyway. Class 2 I've worked on. Class 3 I have not worked on yet, but right now we are on Class 4, which is study level affairs. And lesson 1 within class 4 is learning the study. And this video is part 2, which I call the digest worksheet. So there is a website that I created that goes along with this video series. I upload the videos to YouTube. And in my website, I have a list of all the videos and links to the YouTubes for all the videos. And also in the description box of every video is a link to the COM website. So the mission of the Clinical Operations Program is to help you run a better clinical operations team by offering tips, tricks, and wisdom that I've gleaned over my 20-plus year career with the goal of your team achieving operational excellence. Almost all of my experience has been working for a CRO. I have just a little bit of experience working for the sponsor itself, but what I'm going to talk about today deals with people who work for CROs. When a person is hired on, usually the first week of employment is just HR onboarding tasks, making sure you get your computer, all the passwords work, that you have access to all of the portals you need to, how to fill out a timesheet and all that kind of stuff. The second week is devoted to protocol training, and that's what I'm going to deal with in this video. Typically, the protocol training period is a week. There is a lot to learn, but not everything that is in all of the study documents, like the protocol and the manuals and the plans, not all of the material in those documents are of equal importance. What I'm going to talk about today is basically showing you how to separate what's important from what's not, and making sure that you do spend time learning what is important. So I want to backtrack a little bit or go off on a tangent about reading. For a long time, I was interested in learning how to speed read. And I bought a lot of books on it, and I tried a lot of different techniques, and my reading speed didn't change significantly based on the things I read. President Kennedy was known to be a very fast reader, and I just did a quick Google and found that his reading speed was 1,200 words per minute, and that's really fast. I forgot what mine was, maybe 300 or 400. But I suspect that President Kennedy learned a kind of speed reading, sort of like what I'm going to talk to you today about. And that is, don't spend time reading stuff that doesn't matter and go looking for the stuff that does matter. Kennedy had to read a lot of documents, memos, reports. Most presidents read a lot. He's a busy guy, a lot to take care of. So he had to be able to find the important stuff in a document. Similarly, when you go trying to learn a protocol, a lot of the stuff in the protocol itself and the accompanying documents, like the plans and the manuals, some of the stuff is less important. I'm going to call it chaff, just to make it clear that there's some stuff that is just not important. And a lot of the stuff is redundant, and you probably don't need to read the same stuff twice. I like to read history, and I am going to share a couple things with you now that are examples of things that you do not need to read. So I like to read military history. I like to read fiction, literature, good stuff. And I like to read biographies. A few of my heroes, or my idols, I should say, in the literary community are Hemingway, because I like his books, and Fitzgerald, because I like everything about the guy, his books and himself. So I got this book called The True Story of Hemingway's First Wife. So what I do when I get a book or document is I think about, what do I want to learn out of this? So for this book, I wanted to learn two things. First of all, what was Hemingway like as a person? And second, why did his first marriage dissolve? So this is an example of things that I am offered to read that don't answer my two questions. The Elton Midnight Special gasped and sputtered out of Union Station, then rumbled through the brick north side of St. Louis, Missouri, and out into the open country. Hadley Richardson sat back against the green plush seats. Yada, yada, yada. I don't care about any of that. So what I would do is I would read the first couple words. Oh, this is about a train. I'm going to skip that. And then let's see. She's going to New Hampshire. I don't care about that. And actually, I've read this stuff, and I know the first 20 pages is all chaff. What her parents were like, what kind of house she lived in, what her best friend from high school ended up doing after high school, things like that I don't care about. So I read quickly and skip over the things that I don't care about. I like to read history, specifically military history. And my most recent interest is the Battle of the Bulge that took place in December of 1944. To me, it's hugely interesting. I probably have 20 books on it. And except for one, I like them all. The things I want to know, big picture, are, how did the Germans pull off their initial attack? And then how did the Allies stop the advancement and then push German forces back into Germany? So I have a book, a really good book called A Time for Trumpets. And this is the first paragraph of the book. Located in western reaches of the Ardennes region of Belgium, the village of Bandy had little distinction. It was just another farming village, lacking the narrow, winding, cobblestone streets and mountain-like settings of so many villages in that area. I don't care about that. That does nothing for me that answers my two questions. So I skip that. Then I look at the next one. They talk about the main highway in Grand Rue. Don't care about it. Talk more about the people who lived in Bandy. I don't care about that. And then they goes on to September 8th. That's well before the battle. I'm going to skip that. So when I go into a reading task, I have questions that I want to answer. And I encourage you to do the same thing when you try to learn a protocol. Have questions in mind that you want to answer and get the answers to them. So in the course of my career, I have created a worksheet, an Excel worksheet that I call the digest. And it is a lengthy worksheet that has a lot of questions about a lot of things that I want the answers to. And when I get the answers to them, to all of them, I consider myself prepared. I can do a monitoring visit. I can conduct meetings. I can talk with my managers, my sites. I'm literate. I'm ready. So what I'm going to share with you today is that worksheet, the digest worksheet. It's a very simple Excel worksheet. It's got some columns that are filtered that are very helpful. And I'm going to show you how I use that worksheet to get the information I want to get ready as fast as possible. I apologize for the volume of the body of this video being soft. I actually recorded that 3 times. The volume was low on everyone, and I can't figure out how to correct that and when it won't. So for the next segment of this video, you're going to have to turn up your own volume. Mea culpa. I have everything that I want to know divided in sections that I call area. So Loom doesn't show what happens when I click the drop down, but there are about 10 different areas. I typically divide a clinical study into at least 4 areas: data, drug, regulatory, and monitoring. But for this class, in this video, I am going to show you what I have for 4 areas. The first one is data. So like I said earlier, I have several questions that I want to have answered before I start working on the protocol. And for data, these are the questions. What EDC system is used and what version is it? What version of the EEG is current? How is the training done for the EDC for the site staff? And I don't have it written here, but a subset of that would be including the site staff who does not attend the SIV. What data for screen fail subjects need to be entered? And lastly, does the PI need to sign the last CRF page, and how is that done? So in the last 2 years or so, I have taken 2 project management courses, and in both of them, they refer to something called Agile Project Management, which means that you take things as they come, you make changes, you exploit opportunities, and you correct problems, and maybe you even adjust the mission, the ultimate goal. This worksheet is sort of an example of that. I have added to this all the time. Every time I have a study, I add to this, and maybe I delete some stuff too. But this is what I have for data right now. I'm going to clear data, and I'm going to show you what I have for drug. So I have a lot of questions that I want answered for drug. What initiates the first shipment of IP? Is it a fully executed contract? Is it an appointment for the SIV? Is it IRB approval? Find out what it is. And whatever it is, make sure it gets done. If it's a blinded study, what are the procedures to unblind? Are there parts and cohorts? And if there are, Find out what they are and what the criteria are and any ramifications for those cohorts. I was on a study that had probably 8 different cohorts with a schedule of events for each one. It was very, very difficult to manage. What is the concentration of drug in the vial? A subset of that would be, how many vials of drug do you typically use for one subject for one visit? You have to help the site not run out of drug. Help them do that by figuring out how quickly they're going to run out of their inventory. What's the length of the treatment cycles? Here's a very important one. What's the dose reduction plan in the event of an adverse event and the PI wants to incrementally reduce the dose? What's the plan? Does it need to be run through the medical monitor? If it's a IV drug, what's the infusion rate? How long is the IP good for after it's removed from the refrigerator? Sometimes the protocol specifies how long the maximum time from the time the drug is removed from the refrigeration until it's administered. If it is called for, you have to make sure the site staff captures those time points. When was it removed from the refrigerator? When was the reconstitution started? And when was it administered? Sometimes the drug has to be left at room temperature for a certain period of time. If that's the case, make sure you know it and make sure the site knows it. What's the mechanism of action? How is the drug packaged? Is it a powder? Or is it a concentration of a liquid? Does each vial have a unique number? That's important to know ahead of time. So when you go do your monitoring visit, you know what you need to be looking for. How is the dose calculation done? Is it one size fits all, or is it weight based, or what? What's the plan? If it's if the dosing is done by weight, what weight is used? Some sites and some protocols use this weight at consenting. Sometimes the weight is done at every infusion visit. Is a filter required, and what is the filter required? And does the site have that filter? That's an important question. A lot of these IV drugs do have filters. The people who write the protocols sometimes are not intimate with site procedures. And the protocol writers ask for something that the site does not typically carry. That's happened to me. So there are a bunch here. And the last one, like I had for data, is, are there any salients for the study drug? And I made up one here that actually I've had in the past. Some dark sediment in the vial is normal and not a problem and should not be reported to the sponsor. That's good to know. If I ever saw sediment in a vial, I would be asking questions. It's almost like mold on bread. Okay, so that's an example of drug. Now let's go to lab. And I break lab into several different sections. Lab PK, which is a part of every study that I've been on. Lab safety, lab tumor. So I'm just going to click on the lab PK and show you what kinds of questions I want to have answered. How are the initial supplies ordered? Does the site have to request them, or are they shipped automatically? How are they reordered? Does the system notice or detect when the inventory is getting low and the site is supplied automatically, or does the site have to request it themselves? How fast are the lab supplies received from the time they're ordered? That's an important one. I ran across this several times. The site was getting low, they ordered it, and they did not get lab supplies in time for the subject visit, which is a problem, especially for cancer studies, because PK is pretty darn huge. It's up there with efficacy. What is the name of the central lab vendors portal? What is the schedule for PK draw? Most studies I've been on, there has been a discrete lab manual, because there is a lengthy, sometimes convoluted plan for drawing PK samples, like half hour before drug, and then 30 minutes post, hour post, 5 hours post, 10 hours post, and that kind of stuff. For storage, how are PK samples stored? What temperature? How frequently should they be shipped, and to whom? What days of the week can PK specimens be received at the lab? That's an important one. And then again, I've got this one for salience. So that's lab. And so the last one for illustration, I'm going to talk about monitoring. So these are the questions I want to have answered. What monitoring plan is in effect? Sometimes the one that someone emails you is not the current one. You should know what's current. And if you have a good project manager, the date of the current version will be listed in the agenda of meetings. When should the first monitoring visit be done? How frequently should be done? Is 100% SDV required? In the event of deviations, what is the process for telling management? Who needs to know? Which ones? You know, if there's a deviation for the EKG being 1 minute out of window, maybe that's not such a big deal. But if the deviation is that instead of 200 milliliters of drug, only 180 were given, who needs to know about that? I'll bet the medical monitor would want to know. So these are the questions for monitoring. So this is what I do. Almost always when I start a study, I am sent a worksheet that lists all the documents that I need to know and study during the onboarding period. And as I go through those documents, I open this up and I answer the questions. The monitoring plan, the recruitment plan, the lab plan, the data management plan. And as I go through those, I answer these questions. And then after I'm done with all of the documents, I find out what questions I have not answered, figure out if I actually want an answer to them. And if I do, I go get the answers. And after all that, I'm in really good shape. So that's one thing good about this. All the questions are there, most of them. It's easy to use. You just filter column A and you get to answer the questions. It's focused learning. Another good thing this is good for is training. Project managers could use this to identify things that they want to talk about in training. There's some salience. A lot of the IP questions are salience. You know, what's the concentration? How fast should the drug be given? How long are the monitoring visits, or what is the spacing? So these questions are a good guide for the project manager to to do what you need to know. Monitoring visit. So in conclusion, this digest worksheet is very good for a few reasons. First of all, it focuses your attention on the things that matter. When you start a study, you're not given a lot of time, but you are given a lot of documents that you have to study and learn and know. So what this document does is it forces you to direct your attention to the things that matter. It's easy to use. You just filter the first column for the subject that you want to address. Sometimes it's easy. If you are working on the pharmacy manual, then you filter the drug, filter the worksheet for drug. If you're studying the monitoring plan, then you click on monitoring. It's very simple. So as you go through all the documents, and typically you'll be given a list of all the documents that you'll have to learn and study, you open the worksheet and you do your best. And then after you do all that, then you go back and you find the questions that you do not have answers to, and then you go answer them. And once you do that, you're in really good shape. So that's it from the user's perspective. And it's also a good tool to use from the manager perspective, because it's a great tool to use for protocol training for your team. And that includes CRAs, but also all of the other staff that goes into a study. So this is part 2 of this lesson. The next lesson will deal with the monitoring plan and acronyms and initialisms.